We grew up with the idea of a criminal and a villain, and there's always a hero and a savior on the other side, zeh keneged zeh, one against the other. And in these parshiot that are in front of us, discuss the paradigm of the villain in direct contrast to the successor, the one who is the hero. Of course, Yaakov and Esav. And the question that needs to be asked is, Esav, we know, was not exactly a great guy. The Gemara actually lists a bunch of averot that he did. He didn't believe in Tchiyat Meitim. He sold the Bechorah. He actually had relations with a Nara Murasa, a woman who was betrothed. And he killed the person on the day that he went off the derech, as we say. And still, the funny way that the Torah decides to describe him is that Esav was an Ish Yodei Tzayid Isadeh. He was a hunter. Big deal, so he was a hunter. So the man went fishing. What bothers us about the fact that he's an Ish Tzayid? If he was such an Avarian, he was such a person who was over Yisurim all the time, and did things that are incorrect, al pi halacha, so what is the Torah not describe that as the problem? Instead it describes him in terms of the fact that he was a hunter. So the teretz of this question is based on an idea which I saw once from Rav Lapiansky, and that is that when we discuss Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, we usually think of something chronological, that now is Olam Hazeh, later is Olam Haba, and that's how it is, and that's why it's called Zeh, this, and later as next. But that's incorrect. Olam Hazeh, in a much deeper understanding, has to do with the word Zeh, this, right now, the here and now, the immediate need for everything that has to do in the world that stands in front of me, immediate gratification. I need it for the here and now. I'm not looking for things that are happening afterwards. As opposed to, when we're talking about Olam Haba, is also actions that take place in this world, but it comes with what we call a calculation, a cheshbon, knowing that there's a purpose or something behind it. Lo aleinu. If someone has to, as we say, chas v'shalom, go through chemotherapy, he was diagnosed with some type of horrible sickness, and he has to go through chemotherapy. If it happens to Rahman al-Itzlan, a child, so that child is uncomfortable, upset about the fact that he's going through these treatments. Not regarding presently, we're not discussing whether he's upset at Hashem or not upset at Hashem. That's not the idea. But presently he thinks about what's going on. He's like, wow, I can't wait till it's over. He's looking just like that, and it's over today. Well, next week there's another treatment. Oh, shucks. Okay, at least the person has a week break off. That's the way he thinks. He thinks in the here and now about the pain and pleasure. What is going on? As opposed to an adult who is going through the same therapy and is going through the same pain, has meaning to the pain. At least he sees an objective where it's getting to. He understands that next week he has to go through the process again. But the whole thing is seen in one global picture. He's able to see it in a bigger picture to know he's getting to somewhere. Hopefully he's being cured from a deadly sickness. He's being removed from a place that he doesn't want to be. And therefore, even though he is going through the same pain as that child, there's a lot more meaning behind the pain that is being expressed presently. That is the difference between people who have a drive of Olam Hazeh, who their focus is in the immediate gratification, as opposed to Olam Haba. Olam Hazeh is segmented, is day and day and day. The world was created one day after the next. You see it in an individual place, as opposed to Olam Haba is seen as one big scene without being segmented. It's much more pronounced, everything that happens, and therefore you can see this piece as a piece of a big puzzle, and it's a greater way to be able to be calm and at ease about your whole entire situation. That was really the difference between Esav and Yaakov. Yes, Esav is an Ish Yodei Tzayid. The idea of being a hunter is the person who's looking for the here and now, for the immediate, for what I can do, hand to mouth. That's the idea of an Ish Yodei Tzayid. The word Esav means asui, done, finished. He was done. That's it. There's no future. Whatever it is, there's nothing that is more beyond than what exists. That's the idea behind Esav. He says, Haliteni nami adoma doma zeh. He's looking for the red. He describes food as what he sees in his vision. He doesn't look beyond the externalities. This whole country is called Edom. Red, I see red. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking beyond than what I see what more than meets the eye. What seeing is believing, and more than that, I'm not interested in. He's willing to give up his whole rights to the Bechorah because it's all spiritual. It's all about the future. It's all about something that's happening later. And therefore, he has no interest in that type of concept. And another idea which I one time heard is that's why he was an Ish Seir. He was one made of hair, because our whole bodies always change and they grow until a certain age when it stops. Of course, at certain ages it starts shrinking maybe, but more or less we stop, except for one part of our body, and that is the hair. The sa'ar keeps growing, and that is really what represents Esav, always needing more ta'avot, always chasing more. He's never satiated with the ta'avot, whatever food or whatever women he's chasing after, whatever money he's looking for, he's always looking for more and more and more. Yesh li rav, but he doesn't have kol, but it's not yesh. He doesn't have everything. He has a lot, but he's always looking for more. That's the epitome of Esav, the man who looks to the here and now, that looks to the immediate gratification to be able to satisfy as soon as possible. And that's why these 5 averot, the 5 sins that are mentioned in that Gemara, are exactly similar. The common denominator between all of them is the now without making any calculations for the future. No cheshbonos. Killing someone without thinking about the future generations. A nar morasa yidafka, it says, not an eshet, not a woman who was married, but one who was betrothed. Why? Because he's not thinking about the fact that she's going to get married. Right now she's not married, leave me alone. He doesn't think twice about that. He doesn't believe in tchiyat metim, the resurrection of the dead. He doesn't care about the bechorah, because it's all just ephemeral. It's all just above my head. I'm not interested. Give me the here and now. Just serve me another cup of beer. Just give me another cigarette. I'm not interested. That's the yesod of the difference between a Yaakov and an Esav. And this, of course, is very prevalent for us, as we can all understand, because Esav is the epitome of the Western world. He describes the contrast between what Judaism chases, Yaakov, Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim, the one who thinks about the future, the one who thinks about what can change and what can happen, as opposed to the man who is busy chasing over the here and now, and that's really what we were raised with, if I could say. The Western world teaches, if I could say, a certain focus on the me, myself, and I. A certain hedonistic idea about just taking care of myself. I need this now, and give it to me. This is the source, with no question, about the amount of protests that we see, what we call hafganot, on a constant basis, because nobody seems to be satisfied ever. And also, as we can understand, and it spills over very simply to the fact that the divorce rate is out of proportions. I was speaking to an old friend of mine, and he was mentioning, I remember when we were younger, already, that makes me old already, because I'm already talking about when I was younger. When we were younger, how many people did you know that were divorced? It was barely around. Now it's a dime a dozen. How many people is happening? Because people go into marriages already focusing on the ani and what I'm going to get out of it. And that way of thinking, that derech hashiva, as we say, is what's causing so much havoc in the world. One time someone sent a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and it was all complaining about his wife and his marriage and everything about it, that she's doing this and I'm upset and I can't handle this and I got to be out. The Lubavitcher Rebbe folded up that letter and returned it right back to him, and he made one amendment in the whole letter. He circled every place that he wrote, me, I can't, me, that. All those, stop focusing on the self and start focusing on someone else. And then you will see success. The biggest shadchan of shadchanim, of course, Eliezer, the Eved of Ram that we met in Parshas Chayei Sarah, he made the biggest shidduch between Rivka and Yitzchak. He got a lot of shadchanas for that marriage. It was a big one. And he was so successful, the first hit, he was able to make it. We wouldn't be so happy if all our children on the first date, they were able to come out and succeed. How is he so successful? Because if you go through the whole parsha, you know how many times his name is mentioned Ephes, zero. All it says is Eved Avram. It only talks about being an Eved Avram, and then later it talks about being an Ish. But it never mentions the fact that he is Eliezer. He took himself out of the picture. And that is the key to success, because the word Ani is a very powerful word. The word I, or my needs, is something we use every day, over and over again. What I feel, what I need, what I love, what I hate, what I wish, what I can't, what I think. We're always focusing on myself, which is normal and it's totally fine. But that word expresses all our desires, all our emotions, and everything about us. It is so powerful that it is the capabilities of building a person, but at the same time, it is the power to destroy a whole entire world. The I of a person can make it from one extreme to the next. You know, the atom is what makes up the whole entire universe. The whole entire world is only here because of the atoms that are within us. In our body alone, we have 1 to the 10 to the 25th power atoms. That means 25 zeros. That's how many atoms are contained inside of your body. The atom is fantastic and it keeps us alive. But you know what? The most destructive material in this world is the atom. If you make an atomic bomb, which we've been dealing with over here in this country, it can actually go ahead and destroy everything. That tells me one thing: the me, the I, who I am, who I feel, who I want, can be extremely productive, but it can also be extremely destructive. And it's all a decision of the person who is capable of doing it, who is capable of making those decisions and deciding what I want to do with my life. This is what we learned from the contrast between Yaakov and Esav. You know, the difference between an animal and a person sounds the same. Animal and behemoth, no, they all eat, they all drink, they all sleep, they all reproduce. They're all doing the same things. What's the difference? The answer is a behemoth is always a behemoth. From day one till the day he dies, he doesn't change. He is not affected. The word behemoth means ba-ma. He is what he is, a behemoth. And guess what? Esav was the man of behemoths. He was an ish tzayid, a man that was hunting for animals. He was connected to animals because it's the same concept, no change. Busy changing and getting interested in my own physical desires, eating, drinking, chasing, looking for this, looking for that. Ba-ma, what it is, it's what it is. There's no building of the process of the person, just trying to satiate and satisfy all my desires. Ba-ma, I am what I am, and that's it. It stops over there. Ba is it, to what it is ma. You will not find more than what meets the eye. When you see an ox, you see an ox. There's nothing hiding behind them. You see 10 lions, you see 10 lions. You can know when they migrate. You can know what they eat. You can know exactly what they're all going to do when they see a bunch of zebras together. They are all predictable. That's what it's all about, as opposed to an Adam is from Lashon Adama, because he grows, he changes, he's influenced, he makes decisions, he has free choice, and that koach, that power of free choice, can make him to what he is, for the good or for the bad. To destroy worlds like that Russia 80 years ago was able to cause the death of 56 million people in World War II because of the craziness of one person's head who was so into the ani, to himself, to everything that he presented. Everything was, the whole idea of the Aryan race is one selfish idea that is all about myself. That's the power of a person, and that's what he can do to destroy. And on the contrast, lahavdil million of dollars in 1933, when that person came to power, lahavdil, to make a distinction, there was a great man that passed away because he could not be on the planet simultaneously with him. His name was the Chafetz Chaim of Yisrael Meir Kagan. The Chafetz Chaim, who was a person who was exactly the polar opposite, the one who loved Klal Yisrael, the one that was always looking to help. Every book he wrote, every speech he made, every aspect of his life, every bone in his body was dedicated to helping Klal Yisrael. That's all he cared about. And that was the same person. They both grew up as children, as little babies in diapers. They grew up, and each one took his own polar opposite direction, not to make any comparison between them because they're complete opposites. But the idea is clear that we see from here how a person has the capabilities to mold himself. Adam is from Loshan Adama. He builds himself, and therefore a person has to make those decisions and know that it is within my reach, to know that sometimes is my davening on par, am I learning where I'm supposed to be, am I really giving the tzedakah that I can be doing, and to know sometimes, yes, to say no. What's really human is to be able to resist something, not only to do something, but to resist. That really shows humanity. To know what comes through my door, what devices do I let in here, what type of internet access is coming through here, what kind of channels do I let inside of my house? Do I filter or do I not filter? That is a very human decision. Yes, I know how to resist, how to say no, to show that not everything, and that shows true freedom. The one who is in charge of himself, that shows the beauty of the ani, the power of I, to be able to make a decision and to be able to resist and to know when to do something and when not. Before I spit out a comment to my spouse or to my children, I think for 2 seconds, for 2 minutes maybe, and I make a decision if this is prevalent for me to say. Is it worth it, or am I only causing destruction, or am I being helpful? A person has to know to make such then that it's human. That's me. That's a person who's constructive. Those are the person who thinks of the ramifications before he does something. It's an incredibly powerful tool to realize our powerful free choice, who we are and what we have. You know what the Pachad Yitzchak writes in one of his letters, that one of the biggest tum'ah that we have, the worst thing that we have in this world, presently, before Mashiach comes, is the fact that they've decided we don't have free choice. They've taken away our free choice, the psychologist, and says, well, the poor guy this, the poor guy that. And he says that's because we're right before Mashiach's time. When Mashiach comes, there is no more free choice. That's it. The game's over. There's no more free choice. So we're spilling into an age where people are denying free choice. And that's what causes this issue. There was a person by the name of Ethan Couch in 2013 in England that is a 16-year-old crazy drunk driver. He was going incredible speeds. He went off the side of the road. He killed 4 people and injured 7 very seriously when he was driving horrifically. He got pulled in. Eventually they found him. They pulled him into court. And his psychologist that was there testified that he was suffering from affluenza. You know what affluenza means? It's the same word as affluence. He grew up so wealthy, so spoiled, he doesn't even realize the consequences of his actions, the poor guy. He was overdone. He doesn't have any boundaries. You have to have pity on him. He didn't know what he's doing. Guess what? He got acquitted. His whole punishment was he had to go to rehab for the next 6 months. Poor guy. Can you imagine that? No jail for him. And as a PS, a year later, he was caught again drunk driving, but his mother quickly scurried him out of the country and flew him to Mexico to make sure he wouldn't be caught. What a fantastic mother taking care of her beautiful child. She really cares about him, as you can understand. Al Kopanim, we see that this is really the agenda of what we are being taught. The idea of not being responsible or held for my actions. And this is a point of or construction or destruction. You decide. Rapinka says a story, unless I finish, of the granddaughter of the Chofetz Chaim, that she was influenced like many in that time period, of course, by the Haskalah, by the Enlightenment movement, and she went to university. She kind of went off. She one time went to visit her incredible grandfather, the Chofetz Chaim, and she told him, Sabo, Zaidi, till when are you going to be in this primitive light, in the darkness of this world? Get out into the real world and start realizing what's going around. When I hear that story, I get a stomach ache also, trust me. And you know what he said to her? He took her outside to the window. It was in the middle of World War I, and he showed her those biplanes flying up on top with the propellers in the front. There was a man in the front driving, and there was the man in the back dropping bombs on top of the cities. He said, you see those planes? One day, they're going to get to the moon. You see those bombs? One day, they're going to be able to destroy the world. The man had prophecy, Nevuah. One day, he's going to the moon. One day, those bombs will be able to reach everywhere. He said, that's what they make. Those are the things that they try to make. We make people. We make mention. We're busy constructing people. This is what I'm doing in the auspices of my room. I'm interested in building a mensch, building a person, seeing who I am and make myself great. The ani, the great ani that is behind us. And this is the greatness of our capabilities, what we can do when we come to a proper realization of this contrast between an Esav and a Yaakov. The power to say no as opposed to the power to give in to every one of our desires.